Hello and welcome to today's edition of URP Practical Talk. I'm your host, George Gonzalez. And today in the studio, we have the General Secretary Acting of the United Republican Party, Mr. Raul Aaron. How are you?
Excellent.
Great.
George, thanks for inviting us again.
Great. Well, of course, not a stranger to here, but that we're becoming a more regularly seen face, and hopefully we'll continue to see you here.
Well, thank you. URP has a lot to share, and we want persons all around the Guyana, from coast to coast, to know what we're actually doing in relations to uh, marshaling the electorate for the 2020 elections.
So, can you tell us a little bit about, some of the work that you've been up to recently?
Well, we've been, of course, we've been out in the fields. We have offices, as you know, located in Vredenhoek. We have offices in Berbice, offices in Essequibo, in Linden, and our recruitment drive is definitely on the way. We are inviting persons from uh, all race, creed, class to get on board with the United Republican Party, and we're asking them to get on board now. And this is why. Persons, when you approach them in relations to getting on board with the United Republican Party, there is a serious apprehension. And that apprehension comes about because persons are fearful in relations to their political affiliation because they are of the opinion that they will be victimized. And this is something that we have to get over to people, to the electorate, that any political party that is going to victimize you because of your opinions in relations to how you view politics in this country, then that's a political party that you should not really be affiliated with. Persons are of the opinion that if I'm an Indian, and we get back again to this race issue, if I'm an Indian and I do not vote for the PPP, I have problems. The Afro Guyanese are of the opinion that if they're Afro Guyanese and they're not affiliated with APNU, which of course PNC is it's a major part of APNU, then they would be actually doing something to their ancestors because that is what is happening in relations to recruitment. So we have to take recruitment to people in a specific way. We have to tell them, you need to look at yourself now. Guyana has changed. There have been a metamorphosis in relations to the political arena and in relations to how persons are now beginning to view politics in Guyana. First, politics was being viewed strictly by race. And because my mom and my grandmother voted for the PNC or for the PPP, it was incumbent on me that I would have to vote for them. And I asked those same persons to tell me what has those parties done for them as an individual. What have the party done for their parents and their grandparents other than administer the country most times in a very selfish and in a very poor way? Other than that, they have not benefited. And the leader of the United Republican Party, Mr. Dr. Vishnu Bandhu, says on many programs that when a political party, when a ministry builds a road for you in your community, it is not the minister or the government that is taking that money and personally building that road for you. It's the taxpayers' money. And what we need in a political machinery is proper management, persons who can actually administer the finances and the needs of the people in relations to their satisfaction. So we're telling persons on our campaign trail to be comfortable with which political party you join. Don't be afraid to come on board the United Republican Party. If you're victimized, then you know then that where you were, it was not somewhere that gives you freedom of choice. And I believe every Guyanese has the right to choose which political party they want to vote for in relations to what they believe will be the outcome in relations to how the country is managed.
So, with all that being said, that do you feel that Guyana is truly ready for issues-based voting?
We're not. We're not. The United Republican Party mission is to change that and to sensitize persons in relations to how they can move away from race politics and gravitate towards issues. If we do not head in a direction whereby that can be changed, then we will definitely be looking at the same thing happening over and over again in our society. And we have to change this. A young person that is growing, that is just out of university and that is seeking a job, they must take a step back and look at the situation. And they must be able to say, based on the issues that are currently happening in the society, in the economy, is this a political party that I want to vote for that is going to take me to the next level? And they must do so in an honest and fair way. And then they must go and cast their ballots, feeling that they have cast the ballot for a political party that is going to make a difference. We're not saying that you have to cast your ballots for the United Republican Party, but we're saying cast your ballots freely for a political party that you believe is going to take this country to a better place. Not because your parents or grandparents voted for that party and they would have done that 90% based on race. So, issue based politics is what the United Republican Party is demonstrating, and that is what we believe that the electorate should focus on.
And so I know I've heard the opinion of Dr. Bandu on this because I want to bring this a little bit towards current events, but still within the realm of politics. That the and also in form of race-based voting, that there is, of course, the Amerindian Party or the Indigenous Peoples Party that's
Yes.
that was recently founded. You know that they're going to start in September. That some people would argue that that's just a continuation of that sort of race-based politics. But would you also say the same, or do you feel like it's any different, or what is, I guess, your view on that?
Basically, I believe any race or any group of persons that believe that they have been disenfranchised will want to come together. And the current administration should look at that and they should deal with the fact that here we have a particular group of persons who feels that they have been disenfranchised and who feel that the current administration is not looking out for them. So they have to come together and form a body that is going to actually look out for their own. And that is bad in relations to governance. Because in governance, you're supposed to be able to reach out to every race, every community, every region, and to be able to deal with them on a level playing field. And this is what the United Republican Party motto is, to be able to reach out to everyone. No one should go and form a political party that has a specific ethnicity. I have I have a challenge swallowing that and believe because I am Afro Guyanese. So would I be allowed to join this party? Would I be allowed to benefit from the the thrust that that party has because it seems as though it's going to be specifically for indigenous people? I'll tell you this. I attended Indian Education Trust College, now known as Richard Ishmael. And the school had written bold for the development and education of Indians in Guyana. And that did not stop my parents from sending me there because they believe that it was a good school. And I believe that my time, that Indian Education Trust College was one of the best schools in the country. So we have to, our family has never practiced race based politics because we believe that it is time for Guyana to relieve themselves from that and to march forward in relations to what we can do for our country and what we can leave here so that our children and our children's children can benefit.
And so I'm going to, well, bring it back to another current events. And, well, not so much race based politics, but still involving race. That, of course, Emancipation Day had
Oh, yeah.
just recently passed.
Mhm.
And so, of course, it's a very special holiday within the national calendar. But I'd like to know, what does that, or even the concept of emancipation, what does that mean to the United Republican Party?
The United Republican Party knows that Emancipation Day is very critical in relations to the scheme of things. And in relations to emancipation, we have to look at this from an origin position. The slaves from Africa, they were brought here after the Europeans discovered that the Amerindians, who they met here in Guyana, were not suited for the type of exploitation that they had intended. Columbus and his followers, they did not come to the third world or to the new world to discover and to have things discovered. They came here basically to exploit. And after the encomiendo system failed in relations to the Amerindians, they realized that they had to go out and they had to search for something else to do. What they had here was the abundance of land. And after tobacco failed and they turned to sugar, they realized that they needed someone or a race or a people who were climatized towards this industry that they were developing. So the Africans were chosen and they were brought here. And I have a serious issue with persons who wants to compare um, slavery with indentureship. But let's stick to slavery because we're going to go with emancipation. So, because of the resilience of the Africans that came and worked on the plantations, and because basically what was happening in Europe, because they had to have a lot of help, persons began to notice that what was happening in the in the New World was not right. That the slaves became emancipated, and as such, the the blacks or the Africans were touted for being the backbone of what was happening in Guyana, that scheme of in that period. And as such, emancipation is a big thing for Guyana in relations to us gaining our freedom from these Europeans that had us in bondage for so long. So emancipation is a very exciting time for us. The United Republican Party believe that emancipation should be acknowledged. The day should be very much enshrined into the scheme of things in relations to where Guyana is and where we're going. But let's look at the Emancipation Day proper and what is actually being demonstrated on that day. I would say we need not to get lost because lots of persons they want to parallel our emancipation with Africa and our ancestry in relations to what is happening. And I recently heard a a, um, a reporter interviewing an African person, and that African person was given an opinion in relations to Guyanese and what that person felt about Guyanese and their African culture. And they said that many Guyanese don't know their culture. And of course we don't, because we know Guyanese culture, and we have not been exposed that much to the to the African culture. And then we have to look closely at the infiltration of the television, the internet, and everything is becoming westernized. So I believe that in a whole, the the Emancipation Day celebration should be there should be more education than actually fun and frolic. I went to the national park, and what amazed me was the fact that all of the education booths, the educational booths, were empty. All the food stalls and all the stalls outside of the education booths were empty. What was also significant to note was that there were no one in the African booths, in the educational booths, to explain to you those cultures, or those part of our culture that needed to be explained. And those books had in them some clear and precise demonstration of real African culture. And that is the part that all Guyanese should have visited. And I challenged Guyanese that went to the Emancipation celebration, and I asked them how many of them visited those booths. We're being lost somewhere in relations to educating ourselves about our past. And I believe that Adger did a terrific job, a masterpiece in relations to those educational booths, but just that they were not utilized properly. So I believe we had a pretty good emancipation celebration. I believe that it's lacking the actual roots and educational part of emancipation. And I believe we need to take a closer look at that. I think the education ministry should really get involved in educating persons rather than we just commercializing the holidays. Most of these holidays are just commercialized. URP vision is to let's have more education rather than commercialization.
And I know that's probably a bit of a tough truth for some persons to hear, but that actually brings us to the speech that President Granger had actually given on Emancipation Day, where some would interpret what he said as some tough truths. Others would say it was an unfair assessment of Afro Guyanese in relation to the history. But I guess where do you stand on that?
I believe the president's statement is a wake up call for Guyanese, Afro Guyanese in the whole. I believe it's a wake up call for everyone. The URP position is, if an economy is being run in a certain specific way that leads to prosperity, then there would be no one lining on the street corners. And you would have to not instruct persons to get back there. I believe it's charity begins at home. And if we are doing enough in an economy to generate employment, if we're doing enough to educate our people, and if we're doing enough to sensitize them in the realm of things, then there would be no one liming on the street corners. So in one instance, it's a wake up call to those persons who are liming, and in the other on the other hand, it's a demonstration of what is not being done to ensure that those persons go out and make themselves economically viable. Because the URP has gone into various areas in the country. And we've noticed lots of persons who are not employed do not know how to become employed. There is no program to teach them how to be employable. And those programs that are available, most of them are available in central Georgetown. What is really hurting us as a society is our lack of vision. No one is visualizing the actual position of a young Guyanese, regardless of his ethnicity or her ethnicity. What happens to that person when they leave secondary school? Whether they're qualified, they have 11 subjects, or whether or not they just have 11 grade fives or 6 grade fives. What happens after that? There is no training session, after school programs that are reaching out to these children to give them advice in relations to what is my next step, what is my next move. And that is where career guidance comes into play. No one, there is no program, and the URP have a program that is going to assess early school leavers in relations to technical and vocational studies. And I believe that has to be a major part of the release of the relief process to stop persons from lying on the street corners. So, as much as the president has noticed that and has condemned it, he has said clearly that they need to get back into activities, but there is no guidance in relations to how they get back into those activities. And that is where the United Republican Party steps in. And at any one of our offices throughout the length and breadth of Guyana, if persons come into us, we can definitely get you involved and advise you how you can actually get back to economic prosperity. Agriculture is a major element that persons can use to get back into the scheme of things. But if they're not properly guided, they will be lost. I'm telling you this in Berbice right now. They're backfuls and backfuls of peppers and belange and okra and bora that is being planted, and they're left there to rot because of the transportation costs to Georgetown where they're needed. If the government, through the Guyana Marketing Corporation, has effective programs to move the produce from where they're being planted and produced to areas that need them, then we're beginning to look at a cycle of relief for both persons who are farming and persons who need the products at a competitive price. I'm telling you, you can go to Berbice right now, and there are farmers that are farming, and because of the transportation costs to get the produce to the local, to the persons who need them, whether it's in Georgetown, whether it's in Essequibo, wherever it is tremendously expensive to do that. Some of those produce also can be exported. And we need to sit with various communities and we need to advise them on a community to community basis in relations to what has to be done. So the president has made a profound statement, and that statement that he has made need to be assessed in various contexts. And the major context that it needs to be assessed in is how do we do it? And where can I find the help? To me, no one knows that. Once that is in place, then I think his statement will be valid.
So essentially, that statement should be the beginning of the conversation and not the end of it.
It is definitely the beginning of the conversation. And as a government, his ministers and his support base should ensure that the other elements are definitely put in place so that persons can understand and they can benefit from the impact of that statement.
And so, I know we don't really have too much time left in the program, but I'd like for us to touch quickly on on oil. Because of course, as of recent, Al Jazeera, New York Times, various other foreign publications have started to become more interested in Guyana, and I realized one of the common complaints is that some people feel that they aren't being properly prepared for this oil future. That do you feel that these people are, and if not, would the URP government or would a URP government help to assist in that regard?
I believe Guyana right now is on the world map in relations to persons that are now beginning to observe what is happening here. What is also important as a country, we have to look for persons who are just going to be looking at us strictly for economic benefits. There are businessmen that are sitting on the sidelines right now, globally, that are saying, this is a place for me to go to so that I can reap some economic benefits. There is no country that is going to be producing excess of um, it, that is going to be producing billions of barrels of oil, and I'm not going to get in on it. My concern is always with the government of the day and the protection of local industries and local people, local businesses in relations to the onslaught from overseas companies that are going to come in. I believe the duties and royalties should be so high that it should make some of them think again. Protecting the local industry, unless duties and royalties are set at a certain level, it cannot be set on a level playing field. And I want to just deviate here for a minute. The hotels in Guyana, when you go to a hotel in Guyana, they have one standard price. They don't have a cost for foreigners and a cost for local. And the menu should be split. If you want Guyanese to enjoy the Marriott Hotel, you have to have a price list for Guyanese. And you have to have a price list for foreigners. Because how are we going to enjoy what we have and we do not have the economic earnings on a monthly basis to satisfy that? So now let's get back to oil. We have a number of persons who are going to be zeroing in on Guyana's wealth. And the government needs to put in place restriction mechanisms so that local companies can be protected. As persons view Guyana right now in relations to who we are and how this country can be exploited, we need to be very careful in relations to how they view us. And as in one of the interviews, you saw the statement in relations to how a reporter viewed Guyana and Guyanese. And just judging from that statement, we have to be careful. That's what I'd say.
All right. Well, I guess that's a good point for us to leave off on, Mr. Aaron. So thank you. Thank you for speaking with us today. And so that's all the time that we have for this edition of URP Practical Talk. As always, I'm your host, George Gonzalez, and we'd like for you to look up URP on the website, urpguyana.com, or you can even go on Facebook, URP Guyana. And again, thanks for watching.